We send greetings to all of our Kol Amites, as well as all of our visitors of every gender and all the ships at sea. Once again, we're communicating from the supernal circle here in the sanctuary of our congregation. We continue to rejoice in our weekend celebration of Shabbat, something that God has given us one day in seven to rejoice and to relax and to find community, even in these difficult times. We're going to start out by setting the mood with a little nigun, a little wordless melody, and I'm going to turn it over to our soloist, Lindsay Lev. Being connected is more important now than perhaps ever before. So this is a good time for us to do our tohu vracha, to hear about the good and blessing that's happening around our community. And I'm going to begin by thanking our cantorial soloist, Lindsay, thanking our producer, Bob, and thanking all of those people who form our in-space, spaced out minion, as it were. I think we'll call it the spaced out minion from this time forward. Casey and Samson and Michelle, Harold and Adrian, Bob and Becky and Melissa Hart. So we appreciate them coming out and being with us. So for good and blessing this week, there are a couple of things we always like to touch upon. This week, this past week, has been the birthday of the following people: Deborah Armentor, Jacob Brown, Ronald Hoffman, Edward Huft, Amy McDaniel, Adam Miller, Adi Wisniewski, and Bradley Zane. Anybody else have a birthday in here, just to be aware? No? Nope. Okay. And we have two anniversaries to honor. We have Dan and Irene Meehan, and we also have Brett and Cassie Meyer, who are celebrating their beloved anniversaries of their marriages. So we're really pleased to be able to honor that. Who else in the room has a good and blessing to share? I am going to share the very, very simple but surprisingly crucial good and blessing that I think I've talked directly with more congregants this week than I have in the last 3 months. And it's kind of nice to be able to catch up with people and see them face to face. Not necessarily anything but Zoom, but I've gotten to talk to a lot of folks this week. So it's been great. Who else has a good and blessing to share? Anybody?
More collective one. So if you know me, I'm from Costa Rica, and tomorrow is actually Mother's Day where I'm from. So happy Mother's Day to people. I'm a cat mom, but so those count too.
Happy Chaos Day, as it were. Anybody else have a, yes, Melissa? Wonderful, wonderful. Anybody else have a good and blessing to report? All right, well, we're going to get our service started. I'm going to invite up our president, Becky Leonard, to kindle the lights of Shabbat. If you're using our prayer book, it's on page 1.
In the beginning, when the Spirit of God hovered over the darkness, God's first creation was light. As we kindle these Shabbat lights, we attest to the majesty of God's work and rejoice in its beauty. Light is a symbol of divinity and creative goodness. It is the outward sign of that inner spark which God has granted each of us. In hope and with love, we now welcome Shabbat with light. I finally figured out the child fruit.
Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת.
We read responsibly. Praise for you, Adonai, whose presence fills the world, who hallows us with mitzvot and inspires us to kindle the Shabbat lights.
May God bless us with Shabbat joy. May God bless us with Shabbat holiness. May God bless us with Shabbat peace. Amen. And it has been since the dawn of the modern era that we begin every Shabbat with a special little service that comes before the evening service, Kabbalat Shabbat. And we begin with Psalm 95 on page 2. We'll begin in English. Come, let us sing joyously to Adonai and raise a shout for our rock and our deliverer. Come, let us enter God's presence with praise, and let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is supreme, the sovereign over all beings. We turn now to Psalm 96, and we're going to be singing it with Yismachu Hashemayim. Let the heavens rejoice and the earth celebrate. ישמחו
השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. ישמחו השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. ירח הים, ירח הים, ירח הים ומלואו, 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 ישמחו השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ.
Let the heaven rejoice and the earth exult. Let the sea and all within it thunder. The fields and everything in them exult. And then shall all the trees of the forest sing for joy at the presence of Adonai. For God is coming to rule the earth. God will rule the world justly and its peoples faithfully. Psalm 97. Adonai reigns. Let the land exult and the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds surround God. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of God's throne. God's lightning illumines the world, and light is sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. O you who are righteous, rejoice in Adonai and acclaim God's holy name. We're going to go on now to page 7 with Lecha Dodi, the wonderful liturgical poem composed in the 16th century that combines a very sophisticated use of scripture with a beautiful image of Shabbat as a bride who enters each and every sanctuary on this night and celebrate the wedding of the Jewish people to their most beloved institution.
להדודי לקראת כלה, נשבע נקבלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, ונשבע נקבלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, ונשבע נקבלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, ונשבע נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, ישמעו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, ושמו תפארת ולתהילה. להדודי לקראת כלה, ונשבע נקבלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, ונשבע נקבלה. לקראת שבת להוא ונלכה, היא מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. להדודי לקראת כלה, ונשבע נקבלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, ונשבע נקבלה. התעוררי, כי באורך ומירוני, אורי שתדברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, ונשבע נקבלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, ונשבע נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תהמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, ונשבע נקבלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, ונשבע נקבלה.
Psalm 92, Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat Tov Lahodot L'Adonai Ulzamir L'Shimcha Elyon. A psalm, a song for Shabbat. It is good to give thanks to Adonai, to sing hymns to your name, O Most High, to proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night, with a harp, with voice and lyre in unison. Sadiq katamar yifrach, ke'erez v'lebanon yizgeh. And the righteous, they shall bloom like a palm. They shall thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. We continue now with Hatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה, בעלמא דברה הילותי וימליך מלכותי, והיכון וביומכון ובהי כל בית ישראל. בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך ויתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל, שמי דקדושה בריהו, לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, רמירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן.
Please rise at the table for the Baruch.
Baruch et Adonai, Hamevorach, Hamevorach, Leolam Vaed. Hamevorach, Hamevorach, Leolam Vaed.
We praise God for the constancy of the world. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, v'chochma poteach sha'arim, u'vitvuna meshane itim, u'machalif et hazmanim, u'msader et kokavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirotzono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, Uma'avir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uven laila, Adonai tzvaot shemo, El Chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Ma'ariv aravim. May God govern us always to the end of time. Praised are you, Adonai, who makes the evening fall. Ahavat olam. And unending is your love for your people, the house of Israel, Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts you have taught us. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and rejoice in your Torah and mitzvot forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life and the length of our days, and then your love shall never depart from our hearts. Blessed is Adonai, who loves this people Israel.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך ובכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך ובביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ושוכבך ובקומך, ושרתם להורות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי וייתם קדושים לאלוהיהם. אני אדוני אלוהיהם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות להם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיהם.
Be mindful of all my mitzvot and do them, and so you shall dedicate yourselves to your God. I, Adonai, am your God, who led you out of Egypt to be your God. I, Adonai, am your God. Emet ve'emunah kol zot ve'kayam aleinu ki hu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ein zulato ve'nachnu Yisrael amo. God is our helper and our comforter. True and enduring, beloved and precious, awesome, good, and beautiful is this eternal teaching. This truth we hold to be forever certain. Adonai is our ruler, the rock of Jacob, shield of our salvation. Adonai, our God, you redeemed us from Egypt. You set us free from the house of bondage. For this, the people who felt your love sang songs of praise to you. Living God, high and exalted, the proud, raises the lowly, frees the captive, and redeems the oppressed, who is the answer to all who cry out. All praise to God Most High, the source of blessing, and like Moses and Israel, we sing this song of rejoicing, the Micha Mocha. This is my God, they proclaimed. Adonai shall rule forever and ever. And now we offer up the prayers closest to our heart, prayers for our own security and safety this night and every night. Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Grant that we should lie down tonight in peace, Adonai our God, and raise us up tomorrow, O sovereign, to a life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield us from hatred and plague. Keep us from war, famine, and anguish. Subdue our inclination to evil. O God, our guardian and helper, our gracious and merciful sovereign, give us refuge in the shadow of your wings. O guard our coming and our going, that always we have life and peace. We praise you, O God, whose sukkah of peace spread over us, over all your people, and over Jerusalem. We continue now with the next rubric of our prayers, tefillah, the standing prayer. Please rise if you're able.
Adonai sefatai tiftahu fi yagi tehillatcha. Adonai, open all my lips, let my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotzeinu, Elohei אברהם, אלוהי יצחק, אלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון גואל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוהר שתי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו ואהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה והושיע. מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. צומח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומציל אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו בשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ולמען אתה להיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יחדו בסלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. And now we honor this day, our most sacred day, the day of the Sabbath. We turn to page 21, and tonight we're going to be singing Yismechu v'malachutacha. Those who keep the Shabbat and call it a delight shall rejoice in your kingdom forever. The people who sanctify the seventh day shall be gladdened by your goodness. This day is your desire, sanctified and blessed by you, the most precious of days, a memory of the work of creation.
ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. מקדשי שביעי שבת, כולם ישמעו ויצנגו מטוב השבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ובשביעי רצית בו וקדשתו שבת. חמדת ימים אותו קראת שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת
And we draw this part of our service to a close with prayers for acceptance and expressions of thanksgiving. Right, say, Adonai, our God, show favor towards your people Israel and lovingly receive our prayers. May the worship of your people always be acceptable to you, for you alone do we hold in reverence. And we give thanks to you, Adonai, our God, the God of our ancestors. You are the rock of our lives. You've been the shield of our salvation in every generation. So we thank you and we recite your praises. Let the living affirm you and praise your name as the God of our salvation and help. Praised are you, Adonai. Goodness is your name. All praises to you. And we close now, before we take a moment for our own silent prayers, with a prayer for peace.
Shalom Rav al Israel Amha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Israel Amha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Israel Amha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Israel Amha Tasim Leolam. וטוב בעיניה לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומיה. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. עושה שלום, שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום, שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. הוא יעשה
I should begin this particular Devar Torah with a disclaimer. Molly Marks is the source of this particular sermon. I didn't have a sermon until yesterday morning when Molly called me. So if you like it, you can give her credit. If you don't like it, it's her fault. So what happened? Molly called me yesterday morning with the very, very innocent question, what are we going to do about Sukkot this year? Gewalt. I mean, my stomach dropped from his desk outside my study. Bob Leonard heard me, not for the first time, swear out loud. I was just starting to feel like I had a handle on the complex enterprise of envisioning the High Holy Days under COVID conditions. And Molly had the temerity to make me think even further ahead to another disrupted and disruptive Jewish holiday. I may not forgive her until Yom Kippur. Given the roller coaster while standing still experience of the last 5 months, I think most of us can agree that our emotions are not always under our control. Our Torah portion this week, Re'eh, once again highlights the oddity of having a yearly holiday cycle that has emotional dimensions built into it. Tisha B'Av, which has just passed by, is about grief. Purim, coming in the summer, is a giddy, out of control element of happiness and celebration. But what happens when you happen to feel happy on days you're supposed to be sad, or alternately, you feel blue on the days when you're supposed to be ecstatic? As is so often the case when you're Jewish, there's just no winning. It gets even more fraught when a divine mitzvah demands of us an emotion. And in this week's Torah portion, we are told that one of the key commandments for the holiday of Sukkot, the holiday of making, among other things, the harvest celebration, is to be happy. It literally says so in the Torah, v'simcha b'chagecha. That is, the Torah instructs, you shall rejoice in your festival. Of course, this is not a new problem for us on this particular year. Traditional commentaries have asked the same question. How on earth can Jewish law command a person to feel happy? And if you can't get there, what then? You're a sinner for feeling melancholy or sad on a particular day? If we could only feel happy, happy, joy, joy upon command, well, human existence would be very different. And as my colleague, Rabbi Danya Rotenberg noted rather insightfully about this particular mitzvah, whole industries are actually built on selling happiness in one form or another. Where would we be if we could simply pull it up out of ourselves as necessary? How does it work to command people in a religious context to feel a feeling? As it turns out, that's just not quite exactly what the Torah is doing. As it says in our Parsha, it says, you shall observe the festival of Sukkot 7 days after you have gathered in your grain and your wine, and you shall rejoice in your festival, you and your son and your daughter and your manservant and your maidservant and the Levite and the stranger and the orphan and the widow who are inside your gates. 7 days you shall hold a festival for God, and you will have nothing but joy. In context, being joyful, in this case, is perhaps better translated to rejoice. That is to say, it's not that you should feel so much as you should do a series of celebratory actions. You should come together with your family, with your workers, and with marginal people in your community, people who might be otherwise vulnerable or not have the resources to hold a festival and a celebration. Presumably featuring the aforementioned grain and wine, and all of us together make a party. Hopefully, joy will arise out of that. So the commandment to be joyful is really commandment to throw a party, to have a celebration, to bring people together, all the while making sure that even those at the furthest edges of our community are included. Because joy isn't really joy if it's only available to the privileged. That's not holy rejoicing. In normal conditions, it's not difficult to do holy rejoicing. But this year, how do we even come together in a meaningful way when remaining apart? Because preserving life is the commandment that takes priority right now. We could keep it simple, because pikuach nefesh, obligation to protect and save human life, supersedes almost every other commandment in the Torah. We could just shrug our shoulders and say, no trying to rejoice this year. That command to celebrate together is just null and void until further notice. But if there is just no winning in Jewish life, there is just no ability to accept reality either. There is a very old joke that goes something like this. Scientists announce in no uncertain terms that in 2 weeks, the entire earth will flood and all human life will be extinguished. The best minds on the planet investigate and conclude, yes, there is no doubt about it. All of this will come to pass. We're all gonna die very shortly. We are all doomed. In response, the Christian clergy, the theologians worldwide announced to Christians that they should rejoice in the prospect and embrace this death, for they will enjoy salvation after they have died. And they should pray in the interim for the rest of humanity to convert. Imams and Muslim philosophers across the Muslim world will appeal to Muslims to accept the will of God and to die with the Tawad, the words, there is no God but Allah, on their lips and become martyrs. The rabbis and the Jewish theologians, on the other hand, worldwide announce, okay, we've got 2 weeks to figure out how to breathe in water. Anybody have any suggestions? The Jewish impulse, the attitude that has kept us going and thriving for 3 millennia, is not acceptance, it's not resignation, but adaptation. We will figure out new and different ways to fulfill the mitzvah of rejoicing together in our festival this coming year. I just haven't figured out quite how it's going to happen yet. For at least in Jewish tradition, joy is really described as something that is relative to whatever the reality happens to be at the time. Consider the command to rejoice. The rabbis of the Talmudic period in Pesach 109a asked the question, how should we bring joy to the festivals? And they come up with a few suggestions suitable to their time. One rabbi suggests you should go out and buy new clothing. Another one suggests, oh, you should serve meat on the festival. And finally, after a few more suggestions, they ultimately decide the best answer is wine. I would say that's a good starting place for us. The body and its pleasures are considered a holy good in their own right. Joy is about celebrating, about consuming with pleasure. It is about aesthetic beauty, which is what I think the new clothing is all about sights and sounds and tastes and smell and dancing and laughing and connecting, even if it's not going to be face to face. It's about running barefoot in the sand, digging in your garden, experiencing the harvest season outdoors. It's about building a pillow fort. It's about being in the world, being part of the world as it is, and being with the world as it is, and knowing that these small, sweet things, all of them, are a blessing of their own nature. So what I'm doing is turning to you. Since Molly dropped this in my lap, I'm dropping it in your lap. I'm going to crowdsource my problem of Sukkot. Who has suggestions for what we can do this year to rejoice in our festival? Yes, I know Cheryl and Connie have already decided the drinking wine is on the list. But what else? I will be posting on the CKA Facebook page asking for suggestions about how we can do a different Sukkot, a joyous Sukkot this year in ways that will enhance our joy given all of our limitations. The good news is we've got 8 weeks before this part of our world ends. More than enough time to come up with a good Jewish solution. So I'm looking to you. How are we going to make Sukkot special this year? Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And now it's time for our announcements, and it's my delight to invite up our president, Becky Leonard.
Good evening and Shabbat Shalom, and I hope everyone had a good, healthy, safe work week. For those of you with children who started virtually or in person, I hope the first few days were good. For those of us whose children start next week, wish me luck. Just getting my children up on time. So go with God, all of us, as we start this new school year, for both the teachers and the students and the parents. Safe and good tidings throughout this journey. I really need to start making better notes because the blast this week, for those of you who get our blast and read it, had a lot of information in it, and I did not print it out before I came this evening. But here are some of the highlights that I do remember. We have our religious school open house virtually next Thursday evening at 7:30. 7. And if you're interested, Miss Casey, all the teachers will be there. There'll be some general opening remarks, and then the kids will get to, and the parents will get to break out into each of the classrooms so they can meet their teachers virtually. If you're wondering what it is and how school is going to be different, I can promise you it won't be like our last 5 weeks of last year when we were just trying to muddle through as the rest of the schools in the district were. Miss Casey was interviewed by our naughty youth, specifically my daughter, Rachel, and that is up on our website. So if you'd like to understand what we're doing differently and why it's important to be part of the religious school program and how we're going to engage your children and continue educating our youth, I would encourage you to watch and see the video and then provide feedback about the things that we can do better or differently. Religious school, the first day will be Sunday, September 30th. So that's August. Gosh, see, this is why you should write things down. August 30th. I had the date, just not the month. I'm trying to jump ahead. So that is August 30th. So we're looking forward to that. What else am I missing? High Holy Days are coming up, as Rabbi has alluded to. And I must say, Rabbi, I have already been thinking about what we were going to do for Sukkot. And honestly, I thought, Rabbi's got a lot on his plate right now. We can let it go for maybe a couple more weeks. But I will say there's kind of a group that's kind of been chattering in the background so that we couldn't leave you hanging. But we knew how busy you were right now with High Holy Days and the rest of Ritual Committee. But I know I can count on Rabbi, as well as so many of our congregants, for some out-of-the-box thinking. But bear in mind, with the board's blessing, all of this will be with the preservation and sanctity of life at the forefront. So there are always caveats. And yes, I am Buzzkill Becky. Ask my family, ask my friends. That's just how I roll. So pardon me as we move through this. I think that is the last of the announcements. Sorry, I want to introduce a couple more. We've started a couple of new Zoom meetings, a group for ladies, the Coffee Clatch, a group for men, the Mensch Club. It meets, and I'm not even going to try to get the days correct. Please go to the website or go look through your blast.
Wednesday evenings for the men, Thursday evenings for the women.
Check the website. The website always has like the best information on it. So with that, I'm going to turn over to our list for Misha Beirach this evening. Did I miss any? Blessing. Okay, good. Yay. It's been a week. As is our custom here at Congregation Kol Ami, we would like to offer a Misha Beirach to those in need of healing. Is there anyone here, either here or virtually, that would like to add a list name to our list as I go through the room.
Henry Davis, Shirley Hayden, Sandy Rosen, Mike Nelson, Carol Singer.
Thank you.
And Virginia.
That's it. That's all you get, Adrienne. Thank you. Bob, any on the Zoom? We also would like to wish peace and healing to Anna Binder, Sid Binder, Quala Chisholm, Dave Cook, Gordon Ellison, Tammy Ferris, Dora Ferraro, Michelle Griffith, Mel Gross, Ken Hirschman, Jody Hoffman, Judy Hurwitz, Deb Kaufman, Alex Koenig, Lauren Koenig, Bill Lee, Sandy Lenzner, Stanley Levy, Teresa Morgan, Judy Morasic, Don Neal, Adrian Sandler, and Myra Schusler. If we could follow along with our Misha Beirach, and I'll let Lindsay start.
Misha Beirach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Limoteinu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe Beirach Imoteinu Makor HaBracha Lavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
And as always, the second scariest part of the in-person service is when I just randomly select someone to help me. Melissa, would you come up and open the ark with me? Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, turn to page 82 if you have your prayer book, and please rise. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'atei gilui yotzer b'reshit, shelo asanu
כגויי הרצון, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושב יקרה בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו עליון, ומפקנו את מסולתו, ככתוב בתורתו. וידעת היום והשבות בלבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אלוהים.
Please be seated. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Love to each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. And rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the sea, and illumine your universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. Bayom ha-hu, bayom ha-hu, Yeh Adonai Echad, Ushemo, Ushemo, Ushemo Echad. Actually, all right. We draw our service to a close with thinking about those who have passed away, both those who have died recently as well as those who have died at this season and years past. As we think of them, we include them among our own, and we honor the memory of all of our beloved dead. We begin with Shiva. We join with Casey Flansbaum, who is mourning for her cousin, Modi Ines, who passed away this week. Is there anybody else observing Shiva? Thank you. Harold. Thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody online?
Rachel Miller and Robin Cropper.
Thank you. For Shloshim, we have no one on our list, but is there anyone who's lost a loved one in the past 30 days? No? This week, and connected to this congregation, we want to recall these yard sites. Rebecca Applebaum, Harry Harrison, Bertha Asher, Marie Marshall, Joel Persky, Stephen Sapolsky, and Leonard Yutkin. Is there anyone else who has an anniversary of death among their loved ones? Thank you. The memory of all these people are here with us, and we join in sympathy with those who grieve by turning to page 85 and, if able, rising for the Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, ve'alma tivrach yirteh ve'amlik malkuteh, v'chai yechol amlech. Sorry. Dechol Beit Yisrael, v'galal bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam v'lamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba mim shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mroma hu yaseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn, and comfort us all in our bereavement. And let us say, amen. Please be seated. It is, in fact, the case that we have a series of special haftarot that we read during these closing weeks of the summer. They're known as the haftarot of consolation. They are meant to reassure us as we approach the days of awe that God is compassionate and loving and caring about us individually and as a people together. And so for our closing song tonight, Lindsay has selected out a English language passage from Isaiah that she's going to sing for us for our closing piece. Lindsay?
And since it's all in English, so it'd be easier for the rest of you to catch on to, we'll just repeat it a couple times. You shall come out with joy and be led forth with peace, and the mountains and the hills shall break
break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy, and the trees of the hills shall clap their hands. Let's try that much together. You shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace, and the mountains and the hills shall break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy, and the trees of the fields shall clap their hands. Next part. And the trees of the fields shall clap their hands, and the trees of the fields shall clap their hands, and the trees of the fields shall clap their hands, and you'll go out with joy. Try that one more time. And the trees of the field shall clap their hands, and the trees of the field shall clap their hands, and the trees of the field shall clap their hands, and you'll go out with joy. From the top, just one more time through. You shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace, and the mountains and the hills shall break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy, and the trees of the field shall clap their hands, and the trees of the field shall clap their hands, and the trees of the field shall clap their hands, and the trees of the field shall clap their hands, and you'll go out with joy.
So now we come to the truly most scary part of the service, which is the bracha over wine, and then the prayer for our motzi, for our bread, and the scary moment when our hopes and anxieties soar, literally, through the sanctuary room. So we're going to begin with our Kiddush. For you. There you go.
For me?
Yeah, I figured, why should I do it offline? So.
All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabar kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinhilanu. זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תהילה למקראי קודש, זהר ליציאת מצרים. כי באנו בהרת ואותנו קידשת מכל ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנהלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Amen.
Go ahead. It's untouched by human hands.
Oh, well,
Go
that's
ahead.
nice. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Very good. L'chaim, everyone. All right. Now, it is time for our beloved miniature halos coming from Casey. And my opportunity to practice my underhand softball pitch. So, ladies and gentlemen,
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
and just because our president doesn't like it, I'm going to toss it to her. There we go. She did beautifully. You ready, Melissa?
Nice.
All right.
No pressure.
Look at that. All right. Michelle. Very nice. Oh, I am so good at this.
Oh, there you go.
Nice. All right, Harold's got the special test here. And he recovered. Beautiful. Yeah. All right. And I won't throw it to you because I know you don't have it. But for you, my dear, There we go. And Bob, we won't threaten his mechanical equipment over there. So ladies and gentlemen,